Well, welcome to episode 16 on Matchday 16 of the Qatar World Cup. This is the Ultimate Football Show podcast. My name is Chris, and my special guest today, once again, is Stamfordchidge, a broadcaster and writer, a big fan of Chelsea Football Club, and really part of their history as well. And Stamfordchidge will be talking about the games coming up on this Monday. We've got Japan, Croatia, and Brazil up against South Korea, as well as looking back on Sunday night's game when England beat Senegal by 3-0 to go through to the next round and the quarter-finals. We're very happy to support the LilyWhiteFoundation.com, advancing young people through sport. For more information, visit LilyWhiteFoundation.com. You're listening to the Ultimate Football Show podcast with Gary Chivers and Chris Barnett. So as we head into match day number 16, the knockout stages of the tournament, they continue here, the round of 16. Before we speak to Stamfordchidge about the games coming up today, got to have a quick word on England's performance against Senegal. And Dave, we all thought this was going to be pretty tough, that Senegal would be athletic, they would have a go, they would trouble us, and they did have a couple of chances early on. But I guess 2 quick goals just before half-time, that just broke everything, didn't it? And after that, it was a long way back for them.
It was a fascinating match, actually, Chris. You know, I mean, take away the emotional element of it, because obviously we all wanted England to win. But it was fascinating. And not for the first time, England struggled against a team that presses really, really high. You know, I mean, I think that our centre-backs and defenders are much better playing out than they ever used to be. But I think if you put pressure on the likes of Stones and Harry Maguire, they are going to make a mistake. And I thought it was very much in the balance that first half an hour. And I thought, actually, they had better chances than us. Mm-hmm. But thankfully, somebody in the team or from the bench saw a bit of sense. And we started playing long. And it seemed to make a difference. And I mean, you've got to do that. The interesting thing, Chris, we've seen this with Chelsea a number of times. Chelsea are horribly vulnerable to teams that press the hell out of them. Yeah. And they sit there trying to play through numbers and it doesn't work. And they very, very rarely go long. And I think, you know, there's no crime in going long. And I think that worked. But I don't think any of this would have happened in that first half without one player. And that is Jude Bellingham. Mm-hmm. And I remember last time I was on, I was going potty about how good he is. And he was just absolutely class last night. I mean, he set up those first 2 goals and he was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And he made that difference in the first half. And as you rightly said, 2-0 up, really, that should be game over. And that's what it proved.
And the timing of the goals. I mean, the first goal, Bellingham did so well to play Henderson in, who finished quite nicely for a guy that doesn't hit the net that often. But then to come back and score the second within a couple of minutes later on, again, Bellingham, determined, fouled a couple of times, passed it to Foden, first time to Kane, who buried it. And all of a sudden, your concentration's gone. You go in, you think you're going at half-time 0-0, all to play for, and you're 2 down, and that must just break everyone's confidence and resolve to think we're not going to get back into this.
Yeah, I mean it's an old saying in football, isn't it? But it's one of the best times to score just before the break, and of course it changes the managers or the coaches' team talk, doesn't it? Immediately. I mean, going in at 1-0 down, they're saying, well, we just need to get a goal back, and we're right back in the game. 2-0 down. It's a different story, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, talking to Henderson, I've been a massive critic of Henderson. And I think, I also have to say fair play to Southgate. I'm not his biggest fan either. No. And I think so many people thought, what? When we saw the team sheet last night, no Rashford starting, he's banging form. Henderson starting, because I've never really rated him. He was brilliant last night. He was absolutely what we needed. It was a super goal that he scored, but I thought he was brilliant all night. And for somebody, who's entering the twilight of his career, to be charging, it was pressing like Mason Mount yesterday. I mean, it was brilliant. So fair play to him, and fair play to Southgate for picking the side that very few of us, I think, really would have picked, because it blooming well worked.
He did, and sometimes managers can be very clever. They can also be very lucky, can't they? And they got to. I mean, he brings Saka back in, he scores a goal. He brings Henderson, or he keeps Henderson in, and he scores a goal. And he plays well. Both played well. It's just one of those things. If Saka hadn't have scored, Henderson hadn't have played well, then it would have gone a totally different direction for Southgate.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I'm like Napoleon in that respect. Give me lucky managers any day of the week.
Yeah.
But, I think the other thing that it tells you actually, which as a few of the pundits have been making this point, and I think it's a really good one. We've got a really deep squad actually, and I don't think it's too many times when you've been able to say that with England. But when you look at who we've got on the bench, in terms of cover for pretty much every, most of the, defense, midfield, and attack, I think it looks really, really strong. And we always say this, don't we, in the Premier League, that the teams with the deepest squads tend to be the ones that are going to be duking it out for the title. So maybe that bodes well for England, apart from, of course, who they've got next. But, so far, so good. I don't think we could have asked for anything more from them, to be honest.
Well, we'll get your thoughts on France, who are next, a little bit later on, and doing one of our podcasts. So we'll hear your thoughts on that. On the Monday, then, which is Matchday 16. Japan, Croatia in the afternoon. I know you said you watched Japan beat Spain, and we've seen so many teams in this World Cup come from a goal down, haven't we? And it doesn't happen. It hasn't always happened that often. But, Saudi Arabia came from a goal down. Cameroon were 2 down at one stage to draw. Japan were 1-0 down to Spain. And you kind of think when the first goal goes in, a bit like at Manchester City, when it's 1-0, no one gets back in. But Japan, they fought their way back in, and they played Croatia, and that could go either way, I thought.
Well, it could, couldn't it? I mean, it was a proper football match, or it certainly, had the flavour of that. I mean, Japan gave everything, and they will run forever, and you've got to love that about them. But they're not, they don't lack for technical ability and skill either, and it was just brilliant to see them win it. I do wonder though how much. Spain, like a few of the other teams, Brazil, I think, notably, and France for that matter, really rested most of their first team players, didn't they? So I wonder how much that came into it. But I wouldn't want to take anything away from Japan, because to beat both Spain and Germany in that group is a hell of an achievement. And, it's going to be fascinating, this one against Croatia, because I think Croatia are one of those teams that have gone under the radar a bit. Remember they got to the final last time round, so they're no idiots, and they've got most of the same players. So, I think that they're one to watch out for. I mean, on paper, you'd say Croatia will cruise this, but I think the fact that Japan have so much energy, and Croatia are a bit of an aging side, although it hasn't seemed to have troubled them thus far. As you say, it could go either way. I think that Croatia will edge it because they've got more nous, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was an upset. I really wouldn't.
They've got a great midfield with Modric in there, Perisic in there, and of course the Chelsea man in there as well, Kovacic. That's solid. They know each other, and they're all technical, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, we know all about Kovacic, who he's arguably been Chelsea's best midfielder over the last few years. So we know what he can do. Modric is a phenomenal player. He's one of the world's best, I think, in his position. And Perisic is no mug either. So, yeah, I mean, they got good players all over the place. I mean, Guardiola, of course, who Chelsea are very much linked with in defence, was absolutely superb. Yeah. So, Japan have got a massive challenge. But, if energy and guts and determination can get you over the line, then I think, Japan have got a chance. But I just think that Croatia have got too much for them, unless they're not at it. And there's absolutely no reason why they wouldn't be not at it in a round of 16 match in the World Cup. That's I still think that they'll be too strong for Japan, but it'll be a fascinating match.
It's been a great tournament for those teams that haven't necessarily done so well in the past. South Korea, they managed to get through. They battled their way through in a group as well that was not in their favour for a while. They take on Brazil. Neymar may be back. The talk is that he'll going to play again. They rested the team. In fact, all the teams that you mentioned, Brazil, France, Spain, and indeed Portugal all rested and all lost their games when they had all qualified. But Brazil, they'll have probably Neymar back. They'll have Vinicius Junior back as well, who's looked really exciting. Richarlison's going to be up front now because Gabriel Jesus has got himself injured and he's out. But it was an incredible stat, wasn't it, that they hadn't faced a shot on target until they played their third game in the World Cup. I mean, that's just incredible. And I know Gary Chivers always says they play without a goalkeeper, but literally they could have done in the first two matches.
Well, I mean, they keep the ball really, really well. I think, as far as Brazil are concerned, it's going to be interesting because we don't know how fit Neymar is, even if he is fit enough to play. So they reckon, I've heard the same as you, that he's fit to play today. Jesus going, I would imagine, given the form he's been in for Arsenal, is a loss. They've got a few other injury worries. Certainly their fullbacks, I think, have been, nursing injuries. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I think most people will see Brazil or France as their favourites, for the tournament. And I think most people have a sentimental soft spot for Brazil, me included. Of course, you got, the news about Pelé, not being very well at all at the moment. So I think that adds a bit to it as well. And of course, from a Chelsea supporter's perspective, I mean, Thiago Silva, in the short time he's been here, has become one of the most loved players I've seen at Stamford Bridge. So there's quite a lot of sentimental stuff going on with Brazil, but there's more about them than that. I mean, I wouldn't really worry about that third match in the group, because I think like France and like Portugal and a few others, and Spain, certainly, they were having a bit of a day off, weren't they? But I think when they're on their game, they're rightly favourites for the tournament, I think, with France jointly, I'd say.
We're very happy to support the LilywhiteFoundation.com, advancing young people through sport. For more information, visit LilywhiteFoundation.com.
I'm Gary Chivers, and this is the Ultimate Football Show podcast.
Well, there we go. That's all from us today for Matchday 16. The game's on Monday. We'll be back with episode 17 for the Tuesday games, which is Morocco, Spain and Portugal, Switzerland, joined once again by Stamfordchidge. Make sure you join us for the next episode coming out on episode number 17. We'll see you then.